Hi, I'm Marguerite Picard, a director at MELCA. Today I'm having a conversation with Sallyanne Hartnell. Sallyanne is a divorce coach. Her business is Reflect Coaching. Today we're going to touch briefly on divorce coaching, but we're also going to be talking about the dilemmas that people face in making their decision to leave their relationship or to stay. The stay or go question, I suppose, Sallyanne.
Absolutely.
That everybody who works in this area understands that people grapple with, often for a long time before making a decision. Sallyanne, today we're mostly going to be talking about the stay or go question, but I think it might be valuable to reflect on what divorce coaching actually is and how it's different from therapy.
Yeah, for sure. Marguerite, the main difference between therapy or counselling and coaching is that coaching is really future focused. So while with my clients we will look at and unpack some of the reasons why they are where they are, we don't go into a whole lot of detail about that. We look forward. So we start the process by looking at where the client most wants to be in 1, 2, 5, 10 years' time, and we step back from there and create a framework with action points and goals to move them from where they are to where they most want to be. So I liken it to, with therapy, you'll carry your bags in and you'll open your bags and you'll unpack them all and you'll take out each item and look closely at it, analyse it and work out how it fits and how it packs back into that suitcase. With coaching, it's like, okay, you've got your bag, we'll have a quick look, now let's go. Where are we off to? So it's very future focused and journey based.
I really like that description and the analogy with the case. I'm assuming that quite often when you speak to people in the early stages of the divorce coaching work they do with you, there's a lot of focus or looking back perhaps at the stay or go question. And I'm assuming that's why you've created your new program.
That's exactly why. So many times I have heard, I wish I had found you earlier. And it got to the point where it was really clear there was a need for people to be supported while they were grappling with that question. And as you know, that question can come up and be mulled over for quite some time before a decision to leave is actually made. So yeah, that's exactly why I created this new program, to provide deep support while somebody either reconnects to themselves and to their partner and rebuilds a relationship, or chooses to leave. And again, as you would know with the work you do at MELCA, it's really important those first steps to leaving are made in as compassionate a way as possible. Because once we start the journey, the beginning of the journey really defines how it plays out as we progress through that separation journey. So yes, it's about empowering people to make good, sound decisions, either to reconnect and rebuild a relationship or to step out with grace and compassion.
Beautifully said. Thank you. And it's interesting that as a family lawyer, I often have those conversations with my clients as well. But of course, I'm not equipped to be having those conversations about decisions to stay or go. And sometimes people feel that it's not really a question for counselling or therapeutic support. And often they've not really had another place to go. So it's great to know about this.
Yeah, it's great. It's a really nurturing service that enables people to just go really deep and as I said, reconnect to themselves so that they can make that decision with clarity, but in a fully supported and nurtured space.
And the importance of being really grounded in that decision can't be overstated, because I think it's incredibly difficult for people to be making decisions and trying to reach agreements about parenting and money in the future when really they're still not 100% certain about the decision.
Absolutely. Support in that space, in the messy middle, sometimes I call it. Support in the messy middle is just invaluable. And that deep emotional support to be fully heard and to really explore options, be they stay or go, or options about how you go if you choose to leave a relationship. Just so important.
And what about for the person who didn't make that decision? So if you're working with somebody who's grappling with the decision but their partner isn't aware of it, and at some point that conversation's going to happen, where does that leave the other person?
Part of my work is empowering, educating people how to have those difficult conversations, how to raise it with a partner, how to raise the thought that they might want to leave, and to open an exploration with their partner. Mm-hmm. So while I'll only work with one member of the couple, it is about upskilling that person to take the conversation back to their partner and open it up when they're ready. So that might be I'm wondering about whether to stay or go, or I really think that this relationship is over and we need to dissolve it in the most kind and compassionate way we can.
And I really like the emphasis that you have on kindness and compassion, and the point that you made earlier about the first step that you take really colours what happens in the rest of the separation. And if you start with compassion, there's much better hope, I suppose, that can be continued for both people throughout the separation, and therefore to the benefit of their children.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We've spoken about relationship ambivalence and how separation is a difficult decision to make, and it often takes people a long time to arrive at the decision. In speaking about your program to help people with that stay or go question, I'm wondering if you can give me some examples of how you've worked with an individual and what the particular dilemmas were that an individual might have brought to you.
A really common situation that my clients bring to me, and my clients are predominantly but not only women, so a really common situation is that a woman finds herself in a relationship that just does not light her up.
Right.
Whether it ever did or the spark has dimmed, she's seeking something more, something a little deeper, more connected. So the program steps her through really getting clear on what her relationship values are, what her life values are, and how they are met in the current relationship, how she can bring more of those values into the relationship and into her life, to either reconnect or acknowledge that actually this relationship, this particular person is not going to meet me, and that therefore the decision actually becomes self-evident.
Okay. And so if a person wants to reconnect and their partner is also interested in that reconnection, what would be the next steps then? Would that be referral out for couples counselling, or how do you engage the other partner in that discussion?
It can be referrals out to couples counselling. It can also be simply guiding from a coach perspective, guiding my client to have those difficult conversations or tricky conversations, to open up a space where their partner can step in and meet them and have conversations around shared values for the relationship, shared goals for their relationship and their life. So it's really a guidance from my perspective or from my position to allow my client to reconnect with usually her partner.
All the separating parents I've ever met, of course, love their children. And one of the great concerns that people have during separation or in making the decision is about, what does that mean for my children? And I'm wondering if you hear the same thing, and if you do, what coaching strategies can help people with that?
I absolutely hear the same thing. It is one of the key issues that my clients bring to me, particularly if they are in the stay or go messy middle, but also as they're transitioning through their separation and divorce. The coaching strategies that I use are around creating a really nurturing environment in the home for the kids, really encouraging positive collaborative communication and co-parenting between the separating parents, honouring each other's strengths as parents, and splitting out their relationship as a couple to their relationship as parents, really making a clear divide between those two relationships so you can extract yourself from one and be building the other. So it's a lot of support around communication and boundaries, as I said. So as you gently extract yourself from the romantic relationship that you had with this person, you're actively building on the strengths that you can bring to the co-parenting relationship.
When you speak about the coaching that you're doing with a parent about how to manage their relationship with their spouse or former partner, I think that's very interesting. It gels nicely with what the child psychologists and other psychologists and therapists would say about the need to keep conflict away from children. I'm wondering, when you work with just one of the parents instead of both of them, what kind of impact that potentially has, or that you see having, on that parental dynamic that allows them both to change their behaviour for the benefit of children.
I speak with my clients about defining the container. So my clients get to define the container that their co-parenting relationship sits within, which sounds a bit waffly. What I mean by that is we work together to clearly outline the values that they want to uphold in their co-parenting relationship, the goals they have for their co-parenting relationship, work on dialing down emotions so that they can communicate clearly and calmly, even when the other party may not be as clear and calm. So it's as much about focusing on what is within one person's capacity to control, and that is our responses, our reactions, our emotions, and, as I said, the container that we create to exist, or for our co-parenting relationship to exist within. And as you said, if we can minimise conflict between parents, separating parents, divorced parents, then the outcome for the children is so much smoother, so much healthier.
And it's interesting what you raise about conflict, because I think we focus very much on parental conflict in separation. We know that it's very harmful for children, but we don't perhaps look at what the conflict dynamic has been like in the relationship. So one of the things that we do is try to do some work around managing conflict and conflict coaching. And it sounds like that's really what you're doing with your clients as well, at least in part.
It is, at least in part. A lot of the work I do with respect to managing conflict, or guiding my clients to manage conflict, is inner work on themselves, dialing down their emotions, managing their stress, knowing when they're triggered and ways to bring themselves down a little, knowing when to step out of a communication or a conversation so that it doesn't escalate, and how to do that with kindness, with compassion, so that it doesn't blow up into something that, is harmful, or things that are said that cause harm and tip a couple into a space they don't really want to go. So it's really about doing the inner work and dialing everything down so that you can bring your best self to your communication with your co-parent.
Yeah, gives you some chance at managing conflict, even if you're finding that your partner isn't on the same page as you about that.
Absolutely. And really, I work with my clients in acknowledging what is and is not within their capacity to control.
Yeah.
None of us can control what the other party does, but if we're managing our own emotions, our own triggers, our own responses, it is more likely that they will meet you.
And our positive behaviour is going to naturally have an impact on the dynamic, so it's enormously helpful regardless of the fact that it's only one person. I like what you're saying about the fact that everybody needs some support, men and women do. I take it you're quite happy to work with male clients as well as female?
Absolutely. A lot of my messaging is directed to women, but that's not to say I won't, and in fact I do work with men. It's really important, and I'm quite passionate about our fathers, our separating, divorcing fathers, being really fully supported emotionally, practically, to build a really positive relationship with their co-parent and therefore with their kids. It's really important, and that's something that I'm deeply passionate about.
That's really good to hear, because as you say, it's often women who are prepared to reach out for this kind of work. It seems more normal or acceptable in our society, and I think it's a great day when we can start having conversations about the fact that men and fathers need this help equally as much as women do.
Yeah, I cannot agree with you more strongly on that point. I think it's really important that our men, our fathers, our dads have the support to be nurtured, but also to just build their relationship with their kids and foster a really positive fathering relationship with their children, regardless of whether they're in a committed relationship or they're co-parenting in separate households. I think it's just so important.
Right at the top of this conversation, we spoke about the difference between coaching and counselling. I'm wondering if there are times in your work, though, when you think it's valuable to refer people to counselling for their individual therapeutic support, whether you think sometimes that couples counselling is going to be of benefit, and if you have doubts about whether or not a person is experiencing some kind of mental illness or is unwell psychologically, what steps you feel you need to take and what's your practice around that?
Mostly I find that I screen my clients really well before I accept them into my program. And I will absolutely refer clients on to counsellors, psychologists, if I feel that that is the support they need. If there's been trauma, if there's been abuse of any sort, I believe that clients need that deeper support. Once we're in a coaching program, or once I'm working with a client, I will either refer to couples counselling if I think that's viable, that's helpful. If it's helpful, thank you. And most definitely refer on if there is any hint of mental illness or someone is unwell and needs that deeper support. Having said that, I do also work with clients while they are seeing a counsellor or a psychologist. It is on a case-by-case basis, and that comes in my screening program or process. There are some clients who can do their deep healing work with their counsellor or their psychologist while being future focused in a coaching program.
So in a way, the screening is not necessarily screening out, because somebody might go and do that deep work in parallel with the coaching or prior to. So what you're trying to do is make it safe and supportive and make sure that people have all the strands being attended to.
Yeah, I think it's more all the strands being attended to and making sure that they have everybody in their support team that they need, be it a collaborative family lawyer, a psychologist, a financial advisor, that they have all of those support people in their team as they journey through their separation.
Yes. As you know, my background is as a family lawyer, and although we may work with clients in a litigation or adversarial negotiation setting for a long period of time, in mediation and collaboration that time frame tends to be shorter, but nonetheless it's somewhat transactional in the sense that it has a start and a finish. And I'm wondering how, as somebody who works in a complementary way with what we do, you see the difference between the ongoing nature of your relationship with clients or the more frequent face-to-face meetings that you might have with clients than some of the other professionals who work in the family law space.
Yeah, thanks for that. My coaching programs run over 3 or 4 months and then can be repeated or rolled over into other types of support. So I see clients regularly, and when we're not seeing face to face or Zoom, we are in messenger, I should say, contact.
Right.
So it is a really deeply nurturing and supportive relationship over quite an extended period of time. And I find it's really important to have that duration because so many of the experiences through separation and divorce are transactional and transient, done. But there's still a lot of healing and progress to be made either during or after. So yes, it's quite a long journey. There is an end point.
Yes.
So my job is to coach myself out of a job.
Right.
A bit like a parent.
Okay, yes. Quite often when I see people, they're still feeling ambivalence. The rest of the world might think they've made a decision to go or to stay, but they haven't in their own mind. And they feel a little bit embarrassed or frustrated when they're speaking to friends, family and colleagues, oh, you're still in that situation. But I'm imagining that's normal for you, and perhaps your conversations with people around that subject feel a bit more comfortable than it does with their lawyer or even their therapist.
Yes, and with their best friend. Their best friend is often just sick and tired of hearing the same old stories.
Yes.
Whereas when a client brings those stories, complaints, questions, options, thoughts, feelings to a coaching session, we can tease them out And there is time and space for that to be done in an emotionally supportive but objective way. Because I'm not your best friend and I'm not your mother. I'm not emotionally invested in your relationship. I'm emotionally invested in our coaching relationship together, but not in that relationship. So coaching can actually expedite that process. And if it doesn't expedite it, it's okay. Yeah. So bringing your frustration or your embarrassment or your shame about not being able to make a decision is a really powerful it's a powerful action to bring to your coaching sessions so that we can release it and eventually move through it.
That's great to hear. Look, this is a really interesting conversation, and I could personally keep going for a very long time, but I know that you have other things to do in your day. So thank you very much for spending the time with us today, Sallyanne. It's much appreciated, and I'm sure that our clients and people watching this will find a lot of value in the conversation that we've had.
Thanks for the chat. It's always great to share time and space with you.
Thank you.